With so many mattresses out there, how do you know which one is really the best? Only Purple passes the durability test, body heat test, and the all-new HED test, or human egg drop test for the layman. The best test to determine a mattress's comfort and support. Ready, Billy?
No, I just have to...
Perfect. Just look at how the Purple Smart Comfort Grid, made from a super comfy yet ultra supportive material called hyperelastic polymer, cradled those unfertilized chickies. And yeah, they're pretty real. Now how about that memory foam? See, unlike memory foam, Purple's unique design cradles your pressure points and redistributes support to the rest of your body, leaving your spine properly aligned. So no more back pain, no matter your body type, sleeping position, or frequency of nightmare. Oh, gee! For a limited time, buy any Purple mattress and get a free Purple pillow.
Some quick headlines. We begin with a Fox News alert. 8 people are dead, including 6 children, in a devastating house fire in Chicago. 2 others are being treated at a hospital along with an injured firefighter. Officials say no smoke detectors were found inside the home. The cause is under investigation. And turning to extreme weather, life-threatening flash floods are putting Hawaii on notice. Parts of the Big Island receiving as much as 45 inches of torrential rain. The devastation trapping families inside their homes as Tropical Storm Lane begins to drift away from Hawaii. Another 5 to 10 inches of rain is expected throughout the day. And an autistic 13-year-old boy crashes a stolen ambulance. The teen was being evaluated at a Rhode Island firehouse when he pulled out in front of a motorcyclist. The biker's helmet cam you see there caught the moment of impact. A firefighter was thrown from the side of the truck seconds before it crashes. Only minor injuries, thankfully, were reported.
All right. Meanwhile, we've got a lot of other news, including shocking new revelations about those suspects from the New Mexico compound that investigators say were training kids to become school shooters.
Newly released court documents reveal that the so-called Muslim extremists were also planning to attack a major hospital in Atlanta.
Here with her reaction, Michelle Malkin, host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, everyone.
Tell us what is going on with this.
Well, apparently there was a manifesto in the possession of the members of this compound titled Phases of a Terrorist Attack. So it wasn't just the information that we already know about the kids allegedly being trained to shoot up schools, but also these very specific threats against soft targets, including Atlanta's Grady Memorial Hospital. So all of the new information that's been disclosed by the DA to appeal the judge's decision to grant bond to these suspects, I think makes the judge even look worse than she already did when she was condemning law enforcement and the DA for bringing up the jihad origins of the plots against innocent American school children and families. It's very troublesome. And you know, one thing that I detected in looking at these latest filings, too, is there are some troubling jurisdictional conflicts that I think that may have led to the unnecessary death of the 3-year-old boy. Because what we do know is that the property owners had alerted local authorities, Tanya and Jason Badger. And I really do believe that this couple are an unsung hero in all of this, because they did what authorities always tell you to do, which is if you see something, say something. And the local authorities apparently had their hands tied because of the pre-existing FBI investigation. And I think more questions need to be asked about that, whether there were dropped balls in this case.
Well, more questions. I mean, this is a blockbuster story. The times that I'm hearing about it, I'm so shocked. There's been so much attention on school shootings. We know what they were up to on this compound. Have you been shocked by the lack of attention on other networks to a story that really is very newsworthy?
Rachel, that's a really good question. It's a $1 million question, and I'm not shocked, unfortunately, because you see a lot of this, especially since 9/11. There's this pathology. It is a liberal pathology. It is a mainstream media pathology to whitewash jihad out of these stories of potentially violent massacres. And you're right. Where are the gun control people? Allegedly, these people were armed to the teeth, or they had many weapons in their possession. And the idea of training kids to shoot other kids, you'd think that the gun control left would be all over it. And instead, we get this silence. This is much more than just a run-of-the-mill story about child abuse. And when the story initially came out, that's how it was framed. And unfortunately, the left is clinging to that narrative because they do not want to talk about the radical roots, the Islamic imperative that lies underneath. If not for the Badgers, who did their own Googling and found out that Siraj Wahaj, the son, had been wanted in Georgia on this search warrant, this thing may have never been uncovered in the first place.
Michelle, we've got just 1 minute. To your point, the latest court documents, we've gone through them. 13-page motion. The prosecutors say that among the things they found at this compound is a booklet about the, quote, phases of a terrorist attack, and that they've interviewed the children who survived. And some of the kids are saying that one of the leaders, Morton, allegedly stated, quote, he wished to die in jihad as a martyr. What in the world? Yes. What is the judge thinking to say, okay, we can let these suspects out on bond?
Yes, that's right. And I'm glad that the authorities, the law enforcement authorities, are at least appealing this. But there's a larger question here in the post-9/11 environment too, Ed, which is, again, were there dropped balls? Were there red flags that the FBI ignored? Did they slow walk once the Badgers had alerted local authorities, and local authorities allegedly had contacted the FBI and knew that there was something going on here? It is in a long line, whether we're talking about the Boston Marathon bombing, the Orlando nightclub massacre, Fort Hood, San Bernardino, where we belatedly get information that the FBI knew something was going on and didn't do anything about it.
Well, Michelle Malkin has been all over this story. She's going to stay on it, and so are we. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Michelle.
You bet.
All right, we also continue our coverage this morning of the life and legacy of Senator John McCain. Maria Bartiromo, interviewed him many times.
You too.
She's going to be on next talking about the senator's legacy.
Hi there. This is a commercial about insurance. I know you're thinking, I don't want to hear about insurance.
Because let's be honest, nobody likes dealing with insurance, right?
Which is why Esurance hired me, Dennis Quaid, as their spokesperson, because apparently I'm highly likable.
I like Dennis Quaid.
Aw. And they want me to let you know that, cue over dramatic music, they're on a mission to make insurance painless.
Excuse me. Did you drop this?
They know it's confusing.
I really have no idea what I'm getting, Dennis Quaid.
That's why they're making it simple. Man and Cafe. And they know it's expensive.
Yeah.
So they're making it affordable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a prop apple.
Now, you might not believe any of this, since this is a television commercial. But that's why they're being so transparent. Anyways, this is the end of the commercial, where I walk off into a very dramatic sunset to reveal the new Esurance tagline, so that you'll remember it. Esurance. It's surprisingly painless.
Do you have any idea how your mattress affects your body and how well you sleep? Is it too hard or too soft, causing you to wake up with sore shoulders, back, or hips? Are you uncomfortable because you're too hot or too cold? Now you can get the total body support you need and the better sleep you want with the new MyPillow mattress topper.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. When I invented my new MyPillow mattress topper, I made it to have everything you'd ever want in a topper. My mattress topper helps give you the support you need, helps relieve your pressure points, and regulates your body temperature for you as an individual. It comes with a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry the cover. It's made in the USA, and I back it with my 60-day money-back guarantee.
Go to MyPillow.com or call now to get your very own MyPillow mattress topper. Use the promo code and Mike will give you 30% off and 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free. Order now.
MyPillow topper delivers on its promise to give me a better night's sleep.
I can sleep all night through, and it's a miracle for me.
Mike's exclusive 3-layer design starts with a layer of MyPillow foam, providing you superior support and comfort. The second layer of transitional foam evenly distributes body weight and helps relieve uncomfortable pressure points for optimal comfort. Mike's ultra soft outer layer is a patented temperature regulating cover that helps keep you at your ideal sleeping temperature all night long. Unlike other sleep systems costing thousands, the MyPillow mattress topper takes comfort to a whole new level without any wires, remotes, or moving parts. Call now or go to MyPillow.com to order your MyPillow topper. Use the promo code to save 30%. When you do, Mike will give you 2 of his standard MyPillows absolutely absolutely free. That's right, 2 standard MyPillows free and 30% off your MyPillow topper today. Order now.
I personally guarantee it's going to change your bed into the most comfortable bed you'll ever own.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Some believe if it's not German, it's not luxury performance. So we brought these Infiniti SUVs to Germany with American families to drive them.
This truck is only for German luxury auto, not for family or SUV.
VC Turbo. It's like 2 engines in one. How did Germany not do that first?
Keine Kinder auf der Strecke.
The Infiniti family of SUVs. There's nothing traditional about it. Finance the Infiniti QX50 at 0.9% APR for 60 months. Infiniti. Empower the drive.
We're spending much of the morning remembering the life and legacy of Arizona Senator John McCain, who was 81 years old.
The senator, war hero, and former Republican presidential nominee losing his year-long battle with brain cancer.
On Friday, Senator McCain's family announced he was ending treatment. He passed away Saturday afternoon, just days before his 82nd birthday. And joining us now on the couch, Maria Bartiromo, host of Sunday Morning Futures. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning. Good to see you all.
Maria.
John McCain should be celebrated and praised because of his incredible work for our military. He worked so hard and severely took on so much and in his service to our country. So my condolences to his family.
He was also seat of the pants sometimes, and you covering the economy better than anyone will remember, in the middle of the 08 campaign when everything was falling apart, he decided to suspend his campaign and go back to Washington to try and help save the economy. And I remember talking to then Speaker John Boehner a few years later. He said he thought it was one of the most bizarre moments because he finds out that the campaign's suspended, and he's like, well, what are we supposed to do? He calls McCain. McCain calls him back, and Boehner says, what's your strategy, John? And John says, well, I don't know, John Boehner, what do you think I should do? And Boehner said, what the heck are you talking about? You just suspended the whole game. And so for all the wonderful things he did, he admitted later he was impulsive. He had a temper. He'd jump on things sometimes a little too quickly.
Yeah, it was a moment in time. I remember that when he suspended the campaign, and it sort of gave it all to the leadership to Barack Obama in terms of doing something. Here
It was a
at the
turning
White
point.
House.
Exactly.
It was a turning point. That's absolutely true, Maria.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of guests on today, some who will be able to speak about John McCain, but other issues, because politics is just churning all the time.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get the reaction to John McCain's passing from the inside the House when we speak with the Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, as well as Judiciary member Darrell Issa. We'll talk about that. But also, we want to get to what's going to be coming up in the coming months. The midterm elections are obviously the most consequential midterm elections in our lifetime, I would say. So many things are hinging on this midterm election.
Bruce Orr is finally going behind closed doors and being interviewed by House Judiciary, which is why, as you mentioned, you have ICE on. What do we hope to learn this week? Because it's been so much mystery, and you've got critics saying the president has a conspiracy theory about Bruce Orr. No, wait a second. This guy's right in the center of the dossier.
Oh, yeah, there's no conspiracy here. I mean, the bottom line is Bruce Orr and his wife were profiting from the dossier, which was used to get a warrant to wiretap an American citizen. You know, most people don't realize that he was speaking to Christopher Steele way after he was supposed to be. He wasn't even supposed to be a source anymore for the FBI. And there you have Bruce Orr having meetings with Christopher Steele. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we learned that his wife, Nellie Orr, was working for Fusion GPS, putting that dossier together. So Bruce Orr and his wife profited from the dossier. What I want to know is, did his boss know that, Sally Yates? At the time, Sally Yates was the one that Bruce Orr reported to. Did she know that his wife was at Fusion GPS coming up with this dossier and that they were both making money on this dossier?
Or did they know that the DNC was funding that dossier?
That's exact. Well, that's of course, and they didn't tell the FISA court that the DNC had funded that. So we're going to talk about that, and obviously Darrell Issa will be one of those people who will be questioning Bruce Orr. We want to find out what happens after this closed-door testimony, because my guess is that the next target becomes Sally Yates after Bruce Orr.
You have Leader McCarthy on today, and I'm guessing you want to find out a little bit about how concerned he is. His name is certainly at the front of the pack to be Speaker, and we're less than just over 70 days away from the midterm.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really difficult to understand why so many people are saying, well, it's, you know, the House will probably flip. Because when you look at what this group has been able to achieve, the Atlanta fact, the Federal Reserve just came out yesterday with a new expectation for GDP growth for the third quarter, 4.6%. So you're talking about 4.1% for the second quarter, now possibly 4.6% for the third quarter. And here you have Speaker, the Majority Leader McCarthy and his colleagues among the important parts and catalysts to that growth with their tax cutting plan. So we'll talk about the midterm elections. What is Kevin McCarthy expecting, and will he be the next speaker?
And people who laughed at Donald Trump when he said, we might get to 5%. We're at 4.6.
It's pretty incredible.
It is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and you know, that means better productivity, more job creation, economic growth, more money in your pockets. So as people go to the polls in November, I suspect the economic story is going to drive them. But let's not underestimate the lies on the other side and the abuse of power with this cabal of people at the top of the FBI and the DOJ. I think the American people understand what took place in the 2016 election more than people understand that they give them credit for. And as a result, I think that's also going to drive people to the polls. So we'll see. The midterms, the most consequential in a long time.
Pretty tumultuous week over the last week here between Michael Cohen and Manafort. And yet the markets, which usually hate uncertainty, still rolling along.
Yeah, because I think the markets right now are recognizing this vitriol between the two parties. And I think the markets are just basically, investors are waiting to get some real evidence of more progress. So this week, we may get a deal with Mexico. We may actually see a new trade deal, a handshake, whatever you want to call it, between the U.S. and Mexico. And then perhaps the thinking is that Canada follows suit. That's important. The markets will soar on any new deal in terms of trade.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
All right, 20 minutes away. Sunday Morning Futures, do not miss it.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria. All right, turning now to your headline. A train slams into a dump truck, killing 2 people and injuring several others. Both people in the truck died after allegedly driving past the crossing arms. 11 of the 50 passengers on board were taken to a hospital. 2 are in critical condition. The Texas incident is under investigation. And 7 people are thrown into handcuffs following a heated protest over a torn-down Confederate statue.
Stand up like that! What do we do? Stand up like that! What do we do? Stand up like that!
Demonstrators at the University of North Carolina clashing over Silent Sam, a 105-year-old monument toppled during a rally. None of the suspects arrested are affiliated with the school. The charges include assault and resisting arrest. The statue will be put back up due to state law. And tomorrow, President Trump will be hosting Kenya's president at the White House. Talks will be held on trade and security. Should we decriminalize illegals crossing at the border in Texas? Some Democrats say yes.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says that's just lunacy. He joins us live coming up next.
Plus, the political world honoring Senator McCain this morning. A live report from Capitol Hill. That's coming up.
My great privilege was to serve in the company of heroes. I witnessed 1,000 acts of courage and compassion and love. And it was a spiritually uplifting experience for me in many ways. And those that I love most and respect and admire are those that I was there with.
When your craving strikes, you need your wingnut. Totally satisfy a craving, quite like your wingnut.
When my doctor put me on a cholesterol-lowering statin drug, I knew I should take CoQ10 with it. I take Cunol CoQ10. Why? Because Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the better CoQ10.
Fries for $3.16, please. Thank you.
David, what's going on?
Oh, hey.
That's it?
Yeah. Everybody, 2 seconds.
Dear Sebastian, after careful consideration of your application, it is with great pleasure that we offer our congratulations on your acceptance.
Through the Tuition Assistance Program, every day, McDonald's helps more people go to college. It's part of our commitment to being America's best first job.
Geico Motorcycle. Great rates for great rides.
This is Fracture. Just upload an image, place your order, and it'll show up at your door, beautifully printed directly on glass. And this isn't just another frame, not just another canvas. This is new. This is a Fracture. Visit FractureMe.com and print one today.
So I can buy from Enterprise Car Sales, and you'll take any trade-in.
That's right.
Great. There you go.
Well, it does need to be a vehicle.
But I need this out of my house. With fair, transparent value for every trade-in, Enterprise makes it easy.
Here's your Buick, sir.
Actually, that's my Buick.
Your Buick doesn't have a roof rack. This is my Buick.
How are we gonna fit in your mom's Buick?
Easy.
I like that new Buick.
Me too.
I was actually talking about that Buick.
I knew that.
Did you?
Buick's fresh new lineup is full of surprises. Get 18% below MSRP on most 2018 Encore models when you finance through GM Financial. Or get over $5,400 below MSRP on this Envision Preferred.
Colon cancer screening for people 50 and older at average risk.
I think it's time for a new screen. For a different kind of screen. For colon cancer. Thought about it? His wife asked about screening options, and her doctor ordered me. I'm Cologuard, the non-invasive test you use at home. No special drink, just a trip to the bathroom.
Cologuard, colon cancer screening that's as easy as get, go, gone. Cologuard is not right for everyone, so ask your doctor if it's right for you.
Some Democratic candidates in Texas are pushing to decriminalize illegally crossing at the border. Beto O'Rourke, a Democrat Senate candidate running against Ted Cruz, saying, quote, "These asylum seekers attempt to do what I think any human would do, which is to request asylum in between the ports of entry. We should not criminalize that." And other Democrats running for office in the Lone Star State are expressing similar opinions. So are they just pandering for votes? Texas's Attorney General Ken Paxton joins me now with his reaction. Mr. Attorney General, good morning. Thank you for joining us very much.
Good morning from Texas.
We have not only Beto O'Rourke, you've got Lupe Valdez, you've got Veronica Escobar running for Congress and for governor as well. What are the Democrats doing in your state, and what does decriminalizing crossing the border even mean?
So this is a little scary. Obviously, we're a border state. We are struggling with protecting our border, protecting our people. To add a policy like this that takes away criminalizing crossing the border, you're basically opening up your borders. And the reality is we already struggle with this. We've had over 600,000 crimes committed by illegals since 2011, over 1,200 homicides. We've had human trafficking. We've had all kinds of drug crimes. And if we make it more lenient, we're going to get more of it. So it's going to cost lives if we go down this path.
Ken, speak, if you will, to the fact that when you talk to the Border Patrol, when you go down on your border, as I have done many times in recent years, they will tell you that things like this draw more people across, makes our problem much worse.
That's absolutely true. As you have done, I have also done. I've talked to a lot of our border agents, and they are grateful that this administration has finally allowed them to do their job. And now you have, Beto and Lupe Valdez who want to have statewide office in Texas. They want to take away the tools that have allowed us to be more effective, which I think is absolutely crazy and not in the best interest of the people of Texas, putting them at great risk.
Ken, what message do you think that it sends to everyone across the country when you look at the tragic case of Molly Tibbetts and you realize that this threat on the border is not just confined to Texas?
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, a lot of people think it's a border issue, but, once people cross the border, they can travel to other states, and they do travel to other states. This Molly Tibbetts is a perfect example of what risks we are at if we make border crossings easier, which is exactly what Beto and Lupe Valdez seem to be trying to do here.
And let me just ask you, in fairness to Democrats that are running like O'Rourke and Escobar and Valdez, they look at the zero tolerance policy of the administration and say that that wasn't fair to families, that wasn't humane behavior.
Well, that was a difficult issue for the Trump administration. That was put in place by the Clinton administration, saying that families couldn't be separated. And so the way the Clinton administration dealt with that is if you came with a family, they just let people go. Obviously, that's not a solution that worked. It
it's proven not to have worked. And so the Trump administration was caught with this Clinton policy and also following the law. So they were in a difficult spot trying to make the security issue, solve the security issue at the same time, try not to separate families.
Ken Paxton, Attorney General of Texas, thank you very much for joining this Sunday. We will watch what happens down there, as immigration is certainly going to be a big part of these midterm elections. Thank you, sir.
It will be interesting. Thanks for having me on.
It will indeed. Thanks. All right, the political world honoring John McCain, the tributes pouring in. We're live from Capitol Hill next.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Folks, if you look out your window, we're flying over IHOP's delicious international pancake combos.
Sweet tres leches.
Pancakes. Let's back this thing up and take another look.
Go on a pancation with international pancakes at IHOP, starting at $4.99.
Away is where tails are always wagging. It's a place without fences, without leashes. Away is where every member of the family can run free. Find your away. For a dealer in the RV that's right for you, visit GoRVing.com.
I was looking for somebody who wanted to find love.
At eHarmony, we ask you questions so that we can match you for a lasting connection.
I found my person.
I really found my true love on eHarmony.
eHarmony.com, the #1 trusted dating site. Start for free today.
Now, more than ever, we viewers need someone we can depend on.
Nobody cares for the animals like he does.
That's why Dr. Pol is our choice for America's vet. Vote for the incredible Dr. Pol. New episodes Saturdays at 9 on @GeoWild.
Did you know that 1/3 of Americans are affected by cybercrime? Every time you're online, your private information can be stolen, sold, or exploited. That's why you need NordVPN. Prevent hackers seeing your transaction details, protect your family's online activity, and keep your personal details safe by preventing your information from being tracked online. NordVPN. Protect your family with military-grade encryption on up to 6 devices from just $5 per month at nordvpn.com/TV today.
With so many mattresses out there, how do you know which one is really the best? Just look at how the Purple Smart Comfort Grid, made from a super comfy yet ultra supportive material called hyperelastic polymer, cradled those unfertilized chickies. Purple's unique design cradles your pressure points and redistributes support to the rest of your body for maximum comfort and support. For a limited time, buy any Purple mattress and get a free Purple pillow.
This isn't a liner. Well, to be clear, it's an invisible liner from Smile Direct Club. Our liners take teeth like these and transform them into those. They discreetly take this and turn it into that. We send your aligners directly to you, and in an average of 6 months, you could have a lifetime supply of confidence. Join more than 250,000 satisfied groaners who got a smile they love for only $80 a month at SmileDirectClub.com.
Both sides of the aisle are mourning the loss of Senator John McCain this morning.
And Americans soon will be able to pay their respects in our nation's capital.
Chad Bergrum joins us live from Washington with the details. Chad?
Well, in a couple of days here, they're going to bring John McCain's body to the United States Capitol for him to lie in state. Now, he will be the 30th person to so be bestowed with this honor. Lying in state means that they put his casket on the catafalque. This is a fancy term for a wooden platform that they used for President Lincoln's funeral in 1865 in the middle of the Capitol Rotunda. No one has lied in state in the Capitol since Daniel Inouye, the late senator from Hawaii who died in December of 2012. There will be an honor guard that will stand around his casket around the clock, and members of the public, once they get through with the formal services, will file into the rotunda and be able to to pay their final respects to John McCain. You know, in the final days of John McCain being here on Capitol Hill last fall, he had been getting some treatment, and some reporters, you know, kind of gaggled with him in the hallway, and he said something very pragmatic. He said, every life has to end somehow. He was very resigned if this was the fate that was in store for him. He has not been on Capitol Hill since the 7th of December.
Chad, you have been reporting that Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, has come up with this idea to rename the Russell Senate Office Building, very famous structure in Washington, the very first Senate office building in history. Others have sprouted up. Rename it in honor of John McCain. I saw in the last 5 minutes Nancy Pelosi put out a statement saying she thinks it's a great idea. Should we see that at face value as a way to honor someone on a bipartisan basis, or is there something else going on here in that it would replace the name of Richard Russell, who, as you know, when he died in the 60s, was the most senior member of the Senate and was a Southern leader against the civil rights movement at a time of people taking down statues in the South and all of that, as we see a statue right there on the screen of Richard Russell. Do you think that might be at play here as well?
Well, we are in election season, and Democrats are concerned about getting out their base. That statue is directly below me, one level down here in the Russell Rotunda. This is the Russell Senate Office Building, so named after Richard Russell. John McCain's office is in this building, also the Armed Services Committee, which he chaired. And Richard Russell, was a giant. Say what people will say about his views on civil rights. He was kind of the de facto majority leader, in fact. There's a reason why this building is named for him, and that could be a big fight if they try to push that. We don't know what the political response would be, but Richard Russell, Lyndon Johnson became the Senate Majority Leader. The book by Robert Caro about Johnson is called Master of the Senate. And Lyndon Johnson kind of learned all of his Senate tricks from Richard Russell, because there had really been no one who had mastered the Senate until Johnson. And Johnson learned everything from Richard Russell. That's why that Russell, even though controversial, is such a towering figure. And I should point out that I can't think of any instance where there has been something, certainly, on the context of a Capitol building here, that has been renamed. And so that would be a big
and
fight.
The LBJ audio tapes, by the way, some of the most colorful conversations, as you know, Chad, are between Russell and LBJ, some not to be repeated.
Chad, I want to ask you, because you are our resident scholar up there in Capitol Hill. You did a great job last night, and thank you for joining us today. But what will the folks in those halls of the Senate most miss about John McCain, do you think?
I think they'll miss his frankness. They'll miss him kind of sparring back and forth, but they'll also kind of miss his compassion. I remember a key moment last summer when they were trying to get together on the bill to repeal and replace Obamacare, and there was a late night meeting in the Dirksen Senate Office Building, which is the next building over, and word came while we were standing out in the hallway and senators were in this meeting that John McCain was suffering from brain cancer. And first of all, people became, concerned for his health, but also realizing that was going to create a big problem to repeal and replace Obamacare. Senator McCain called into that meeting of senators, and they prayed on the phone. And that's something that I think people will remember, that very dramatic moment last summer.
Very moving indeed. Chad Program, you always bring us some such wonderful information and remembrances. We appreciate it. More Fox and Friends on the other side.
When bandits stole the lockbox from the Wells Fargo stagecoach, Agent Beekman was one step ahead of them, because he hid his customers' gold in a different box. And the bandits, well, they got rocks. We protected your money then, and we're dedicated to helping protect it today. Like alerting you to certain card activity we find suspicious. If it's not your purchase, we'll help you resolve it. It's a new day at Wells Fargo, but it's a lot like our first day.
"41 years ago, I won the Olympic gold medal in figure skating. People remember me at 19 years old, and I'm not 19 anymore. And as I get older, I was seeing the crepey skin everywhere, my arms, my chest. It was very dry and itchy, scaly, and showing the crepey wrinkles. It made me feel very old.
Crepe Erase is the #1 anti-aging system that improves the look of dry, wrinkly, crepey skin on the body all year round.
I started using Crepe Erase and saw improvement immediately, and I've been using it for 2 years now, and I really don't see any crepey skin.
Why do they call it crepey skin? Well, it's very similar to crepe paper. It's loose, it's crinkly, it's lost its volume. In the wintertime, it's colder, it's windier, it's drier. That's where Crepe Erase comes in to help you out.
I really need Crepe Erase in the wintertime. My skin feels better and it doesn't feel dry and itchy.
The real secret to Crepe Erase is True Firm. It targets the dermal enzymes that break down collagen and elastin. True Firm promotes your skin's natural elasticity, giving it that youthful-looking snapback. Crepe Erase is the only system out there that I recommend to my patients to reverse those signs of skin aging on the body.
Now with Crepe Erase, you can see amazing results like this on your body for only $59.95. But with this special TV offer, you'll pay just $39.95. And you'll get our amazing 4-in-1 eye renewal capsules as a free gift. Order in the next 5 minutes and we'll double your gift. A $76 value, yours free. When you order now, we'll even include free shipping. Call 1-800-862-0971 or go online to trycrepeerase.com right now.
Mesothelioma, it's all we do. With 7 offices across the country, we are large enough to take on big corporations. Let us come meet with you. Call us at 1-800-500-1895. That's 1-800-500-1895.
At Safelite Auto Glass, we really pride ourselves on making it easy for you to get your windshield fixed. With Safelite, you can see exactly when we'll be there, saving you time for what you love most.
Welcome back. We've had just an amazing list of guests, known John McCain, knew this American war hero, and just touching tributes all day long.
And here's a way that we thought we could honor him by looking at his life in his own words. Thank you.
I don't mind a good fight. For reasons known only to God, I've had quite a few tough ones in my life. But I learned an important lesson along the way. In the end, it matters less that you can fight. What you fight for is the real test. We are Americans first, Americans last, and Americans always. Let us argue our differences, but remember, we are not enemies, but comrades in a war against a real enemy. And take courage from the knowledge that our military superiority is matched only by the superiority of our ideals and our unconquerable love for them. Nothing is inevitable here. Americans never quit. We never surrender. We never hide from history. We make history. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Good Sunday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to Sunday Morning Futures. I'm Maria Bartiromo, remembering the life and legacy of Senator John McCain, who passed away yesterday at the age of 81. Tributes have been pouring in this morning for Senator McCain. The war hero and former Republican presidential nominee died in Arizona, one day after his family said that he had ended treatment for an aggressive form of brain cancer. The man known as the Maverick left this world just as he lived in it on his terms. We have a report from Washington straight ahead on new information this morning about how the nation will honor Senator McCain, as well as where his final resting place will be. We will also get reaction from House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy coming up, along with Congressman Darrell Issa and our panel, including former Reagan-Bush campaign manager Ed Rollins. We are also talking this morning about the former number 4 person at the Justice Department. Bruce Ohr will go before House lawmakers next week on the 28th to answer questions about the Steele dossier and whether President Trump hinted he may be closer to declassifying documents related to that FISA warrant. All that and a lot more right now as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. A deep sense of loss in Washington today as flags are lowered to half-staff in honor of John McCain's decades of service to our country. The longtime Arizona senator passed away yesterday at the age of 81, ending his year-long battle with brain cancer. John McCain expected to lie in state at the Arizona Capitol and Capitol Rotunda in Washington. He will receive a full-dress funeral service at the Washington National Cathedral before his burial at the Naval Academy Cemetery in Annapolis, Maryland. President Trump tweeted his condolences last night, saying this, quote, "My deepest sympathies and respect go out to the family of Senator John McCain. Our hearts and prayers are with you." Chad Pergram is live from the Russell Senate office building right now on Capitol Hill, which could soon undergo a name change in McCain's honor. Chad.
Right. You're right. And so John McCain's casket will be brought here to Capitol Hill for him to lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda. He will be the 30th person to lie in state. The first was Henry Clay, the former Kentucky senator and Speaker of the House in 1852. There will be an honor guard stationed around the Capitol Rotunda around the clock to guard his casket, and the public will be allowed to file in. He will be buried in Annapolis after those services. But we're going to see some things in the next couple of days. The Senate will come back to session on Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And if custom holds, what they'll do is they'll drape a black cloth across his desk in the United States Senate and put some flowers there. We expect tributes to John McCain from senators as they come to the floor to talk. And the Senate usually, when there's a death of one of their colleagues or someone significant, what they do is they adjourn for the day in honor of that person. And we expect that to happen on Monday. Now, there's been a movement afoot here by Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, to rename the very building in which I'm speaking the Russell Senate Office Building. It's named after Richard Russell, who is a Democratic senator from Georgia. Richard Russell was very controversial. He served 38 years in the Senate, but his views on civil rights were not exactly au courant with what we would think in contemporary society today. And so this could be a fight to try to change the name of this building. It's something that doesn't go to the president. If the Senate votes to do so, they would just change the name of this building. There are two other buildings here on Capitol Hill also named after congressional legends, Everett Dirksen, the former Republican Senate leader from Illinois, and Phil Hart, a Democrat from Michigan. So changing the name of a building is a big, big deal. A couple of stories here. One thing I remember about John McCain, a lot of people talk about, how he was kind of irascible. But one thing I always noticed is that he was often in a hurry. And there's a subway that runs underground between the Capitol and the Russell Senate Office Building. And he would always be scurrying back and forth to try to get back to a committee meeting or make it to the floor for a vote. And there's a button where you would call for the subway and you would hear a bell ring. And he would practically be punching that button because he didn't have time to waste. And sometimes I wondered when I would see him do that, if that was because, he basically lost all of those years being held captive in Vietnam, Maria.
Wow, incredible story there. Chad, thank you very much. Members of Congress are remembering Senator McCain as a war hero, American patriot, and political titan. Congressman Kevin McCarthy is the House Majority Leader. He joins me right now. Good to see you, Congressman. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Any special stories you can share with us of your time with John McCain this morning?
Well, I just believe great nations require great sacrifice from their leaders. There's been few leaders that have ever sacrificed as much as John McCain. He was fierce, he was loyal, he could work across the other side of the aisle, but he could be the very best person in a battle. I think the very best story is not one that he told, but one that he showed. If you just watched him put his jacket on, he never complained about what he went through, but the pain of putting on a jacket, of raising the hand. It was more than a speech, it showed the sacrifice. He could make fun of himself, but there's many times when we were in a legislative battle and we knew we're not going to win this, and we knew we're going against the odds of the establishment and others. He's the one I'd want to be in the fight with because he didn't care and he would never give up. And it wasn't that day we didn't win, we're going to win the argument, and eventually we're going to win the fight.
Well, he didn't care, you're right. And that was something that made him stand apart. But I mean, it was also created some problems. I mean, when he gave the thumbs down on health care, that was a big issue and obviously stopped anything from moving forward. But that also showed the principles that he had. He stuck to what he believed in.
Even there's times we disagreed, but I respected his ability, what he did. Even though he was home getting treatment, I've talked to Congressman Mac Thornberry, the chairman of Armed Services, when they're walking through the NDAA. He's getting his treatment, but Senator McCain would be right there doing the work. He knew exactly what was going on. There's no one that understood the military better, or the idea of what happens around the world. When we would travel to other countries and sit with those leaders, there was always a person they'd ask about, and it was John McCain, because they knew him personally. And they trusted him. And that helped America's foreign policy around the world during all different eras and different times.
He was a true patriot. Our love and condolences out to his family, obviously. And we'll be waiting to see in the next couple of days how he is laid to rest, as we reported earlier. What does this mean for the upcoming midterms? Let me switch gears here, Congressman, and ask you what you're expecting in November. It feels like you're going to have more success on the Senate side than the House. At least that's the speculation is right now.
Well, the Senate has a much different map. And the map that they're playing is a much better map. House has a history against them where the party in power normally lose seats, meaning the party that has the White House. But there's 2 times that's been different. When you look at what this election is going to be about, it's going to be about results versus resistance. Pelosi's resistance. And look at what results we have economically. The last time there was a party in power that had economic growth at 4%, they actually gained seats. But take this one statistic. In the last 49 years of America, unemployment has only been below 4% 8 months. 8 months in 49 years.
Wow.
But 3 of those 8 months were this year.
That's incredible.
It's unbelievable the results that have been achieved. Unemployment claims 44-year low. But what I'm more proud about, it cuts across all parts of America. If you're African American, Hispanic, woman, some of the best unemployment you have ever seen. If you just had a high school degree, one of the best opportunities. So we've got a unique opportunity going forward. And think what we did. We rebuilt our military. Think about what we did with the VA. It used to be a GI Bill. Only 15 years you had to use it or you lost it. No, we've made it a lifetime. Or think of what we've done to combat human trafficking. Modern day slavery, where people are actually traded. 70% of that happens because of the internet. We shut that down.
Wow.
Or we have done the most to end opioid epidemic of any Congress before us. We've got more work to do, but if you measure our results versus Pelosi's resistance, not one Democrat voted for that economic package.
Yeah.
So everybody who got a bonus, those 49 states that have lower electrical bills, not one Democrat voted for that. They thought it was Armageddon.
Yeah, I wonder if the people are going to hold them to account for that, because you're right. Nobody voted for this, and we're actually seeing the needle moved on economic growth. The Atlanta Federal Reserve yesterday comes out and says we're increasing our expectation for the economy for the third quarter to 4.6%. That's going to be 2 straight quarters of better than 4% growth. That's incredible.
If that doesn't do enough for people, think about what their agenda is. First, they're very clear because they put it across the desk. They want to abolish ICE. So those MS-13 members that come across, those kids that are being trafficked, that get stopped, that ICE saves, or what about all that fentanyl that ICE saves in the process? They want to, 167 of them voted present in the process. The other thing they want to do, they want to impeach this president. They voted on it twice already. They forced the vote to the floor. Tom Steyer has spent more than $30 million. He brags that his list is bigger than the NRA list on impeaching this president.
Wow.
And then the last thing they want to do, single-payer health care. So 55% of Americans have health care through their employer. That would end. But the scariest thing of this, those who are on Medicare, you will end because they'll bankrupt it before it's time because they're going to put everybody into it. It'll bankrupt Medicare.
This is really an important point that you're making, that 60% of people have health care through their company, and that will end.
That will end. But it's not, more than 100 Democrats currently in Congress have co-sponsored it. Now let's look at who their candidates are. They got Gil Cisneros running in Royce's district. He's being accused of sexual harassment by a Democrat legislator. I mean, they've got problems with these candidates that they have before us, time and time again. Look at the individual that wants to run in Paul Ryan's seat. Numerous times he's been arrested in the process. I don't think they've vetted the people they've gone through. So this election is going to be much different. It's kind of like the weather. It changes kind of week by week. 2 weeks ago, the generic ballot was at the exact same place it was the day before the election in 2016.
Wow, so it's changing that quickly.
Yeah, remember what happened in 2016? We kept the majority, and President Trump won. So the battle is going to go forward, but the intensity level's on our side. If Republicans get out and vote, we will keep the majority.
Yeah, but I mean, you would think with all of this good news, from the economy to foreign policy and beyond, that you would have more unity within your party. You're running for Speaker. You've got others within the Republicans running for Speaker. How are you going to get together, show a unified front, so that people understand that you are all together and behind this president?
Well, the most important thing you got to do is make sure there's 218 Republicans, so there could be a Republican Speaker. I think what this president has shown, the results that he has gone, the safety that he has created, the world is a safer place. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon today. North Korea is sitting down. And when they didn't follow through, you know what the president did? Just like when he stopped the first meeting, bringing them back to the table to do what's right.
Yeah.
And then he's standing up to open up more markets for us. I think that's very important economically where we are. If you look back in history, a party that has these much results with an opposition of just resistance, with an idea that they're going to abolish ICE, impeach the president. Right. Who wants that much chaos going into the future? Nothing will get done. And they just want to reverse. Nancy Pelosi says she wants to reverse the tax cuts, so you will pay more in the future.
She did say that. I was shocked that she would actually admit that. Look, I think the markets are giving this president and the Congress some the benefit of the doubt
every day.
The benefit of the doubt in terms of the trade issues and the tariffs issues. But no doubt that that is an uncertainty out there. Do you expect we will see a deal with Mexico over the near term?
I do, and I think it'll be very soon. We'd vote on it on the next Congress. But that NAFTA needed a modernization. We needed to open the market up. Remember when this was written in the 90s, and think of what the financial markets have done. Agriculturally, we have to have better markets going through, lowering the tariffs, letting America's products there. That only builds to the future. Remember, the EU has come forward that they want to lower tariffs. South Korea, we renegotiated our trade agreement there. That all leads into where China's talking about in September, sitting down with us. I was just with Secretary Mnuchin this weekend. He's talked about the prospects of going forward. Each agreement we make only makes it stronger for the next. And there's not one place in the world will not agree with us of what China has been doing for the number of years, of stealing intellectual property, of really
forcing
gaming
that
the system.
transfer of technology,
Yes.
right? And then enabling Chinese companies to come back and compete with American companies. And we taught them all about it.
It's been an unfair trade process for many years.
It feels like the U.S. and Canada have really gone at each other. Do you feel that you are going to see Canada follow suit? Let's say, hypothetical, you do get a deal with Mexico in the next week perhaps. Will Canada follow suit and come up with a better NAFTA?
I believe so. I believe we're very close. And also remember, we make policy in the world of politics. Remember what politics was going on. Mexico was having a presidential election. So it's very hard for them to make agreement at a time. That election is over, but the new president's not sworn in. First thing this administration did was go down there. As they get this agreement done, we know where Canada is, but what it only makes us stronger, and you're going into a new election next year in Canada, it's beneficial to them to have this all agreed upon this year.
All right.
I think that's positive, and then that only builds to our negotiations with China.
Right.
The more we lower, and remember this one thing, it's not America who are raising the prices. It's China who raises the tariffs on American products to enter the market. All we're asking for is let's have a level playing field. Mm-hmm. Let's have a fair agreement. And what will happen, we continue to build on these results, the next century will be America.
All right, we will talk about this. Let's take a short break. I want to ask you about some of your comments recently about social media and what's going on in terms of potentially censoring conservatives. We've got more with Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy on the other side of this break. Stay with us. And then we will hear from Congressman Darrell Issa on our panel. Ed Rollins, Mary Kissel, and Greg Jarrett. We continue to remember the life and legacy of John McCain.
I've always looked forward to what's next, and I'm still going for my best, even though I live with a higher risk of stroke due to AFib, not caused by a heart valve problem. So if there's a better treatment than warfarin, I'm up for that. Eliquis. Eliquis is proven to reduce stroke risk better than warfarin, plus has significantly